2025 was a crazy year for conspiracies. It was a year of action. It was a year of wonderment and full of discovery, but also a year of reflection, discovering who I am. A year of many discoveries and truths revealed. We aren't losing the fight. No, we're winning it. But there is still a fight to be had. Like autumn winds, change is in the air. We are at a crossroads that's predetermined.
We have been proven right again and again.
But no matter where you are on your journey, we'll meet you there.
A new conspiracy awaits every day. Are you up for it? Welcome to the new Conspiracy Classroom,
where we teach the classics while investigating the current. Take this hair sample from Dr. Melba Ketchum from the Bigfoot Genome Project. She collected DNA samples from around the world. Not only can we now identify hair from a cryptid hominins like Bigfoot, the Yeti, or skunk ape, she did DNA tests all the way to the nuclear DNA. She was ridiculed and lambasted in the press. But what she found brings stories of the Nephilim and the hairy man-like monsters from antiquity full circle. They found half of the DNA on the maternal side was human, but the male genetic carrier is of unknown origins. What really makes this question our history and religion is that the female lineage is of Middle Eastern descent from around 15,000 years ago. Think about that. Next in line, here's the famous surgeon's photo from 1934, published in the Daily Mail. It is what kicked off our modern obsession with the Loch Ness Monster, deemed one of the best pieces of evidence. But on his deathbed, Robert Kenneth Wilson admitted it was all a ruse, and how he fixed a sculpture onto a small toy. A perfect example of why we have to stay vigilant, patient, and not get attached to certain theories. The narrative can change in an instant. This is one of my favorites, being local and all. This here is a star map drawn by Betty Hill. Back in 1961, her and her husband, Barney Hill, were reportedly abducted off Route 3, just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, for all you locals. Betty claimed to have observed a bright point of light in the night sky. It moved around the moon, first from below the moon, then upwards to the west of it. Betty and Barney observed this light moving erratically, but then it grew bigger and brighter as it got close. They continued driving on this quiet and isolated stretch of road while maintaining an eye on the object. But then rapidly, what was now sure a craft of some sort descended toward their vehicle, causing Barney to stop in the middle of the highway. This UFO was huge and silent. The craft hovered about 80 to 100 feet above the Hill's 1957 Chevy Bel Air, filling up the entire windshield and bathing them in a glowing white light. It's then they claim to be taken aboard the craft, interacting with beings which fit the classic gray alien description. They awoke in a daze driving. They were 99 miles away from where they first encountered the craft. It was one of the first highly publicized abduction cases. 3 years later, in 1964, under hypnosis, Betty Hill gave a more detailed account of their ordeal. In addition to describing the craft and its occupants, she drew a star map she was shown by the extraterrestrials when she asked where they were from. At the time, this didn't match any known star cluster or solar system. But only 2 years later, astronomers interested in the case finally matched her drawing to the Zeta Reticuli system, drawn almost perfectly. Kinda makes you think. Lastly, here in our case is the famous Annabelle doll from Ed and Lorraine Warren's collection. Originally gifted to a nursing student in 1970 for her birthday, the student, Donna, and her roommate, Angie, noticed the doll moving on its own, changing positions, and leaving handwritten notes on parchment paper saying, "Help us," or "Help Lou." A local psychic told them the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle, who had died in the apartment and wanted to stay. But when the girls gave the doll the attention it craved, it grew in power, and its evil demonic intentions became evident. Ed and Lorraine determined an evil entity inhabited the doll and was very powerful. Like most cursed objects they came across, they locked the doll away at their shop under a strict lock and key rule. Over the years, folks who wished to tempt fate and taunt the doll ended up severely injured or suffered traumatic psychological pain. To Roswell, New Mexico, shortly after the most famous UFO crash in history. Early in July of 1947, a rancher noticed a long gouge in the earth with a debris field of scattered metal shards, rubber strips, and a foil-like material. He doesn't think much of it until hearing the story of pilot Kenneth Arnold a month before in his flying saucer sighting in Washington State. It's then, on July 6th, rancher William W. Brazel reports his findings to the local sheriff, who then brings some of the debris to Roswell Army Airfield, RAAF. Upon inspection of debris the following morning, the RAF issues a press release stating they have recovered a flying disc. Local paper, the Roswell Daily Record, has it on the front page, the headline reading, "RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region." News of the crash spreads nationwide within hours. Some of the reported debris recovered were rigid I-beam pieces that were lighter than balsa wood, but impossible to bend or break. On these straight pieces were symbols that were like hieroglyphics, but unknown. Many craft that have been reported since then, right up until today, are reported to have these same strange hieroglyphic-like writing on them. From Kecksburg, Pennsylvania crash in 1965 to the Tic Tac footage in 2017. Other material consisted of a thin, light foil that could not be cut, burned, or permanently bent. When crumbled or deformed, it returned to its original flat shape. The debris field stretched hundreds of yards and was picked clean by hordes of Army personnel looking to take control of the situation. It wasn't long, in fact. It was later the same day the U.S. Army retracted its initial claim and later confirmed it was in fact a weather balloon that had crashed and not a flying saucer. Even rancher Will Brazel changed his tune. It was clear intimidation tactics were being used to silence all involved. Debris was gathered and sent to the infamous Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Greene County, Ohio, where many a mystery ends up. For years, locals continued to look for what may have been missed, or for any sign the military was even there. Years later, in the 1970s, nuclear physicist and ufologist Stanton Friedman broke the case open, interviewing Jesse Marcel in his account of the events. This was one of the first landmark cases on the UFO topic to be meticulously researched, and one where the government didn't initially admit. But that's not all.
What do we have here? Just another conspiracy.
I know that sound anywhere. We're in the Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot country. Wish I wasn't here by myself. Can talk a big game behind a keyboard, but to go looking, which I have, is something totally different. Located on every continent since Antarctica, a cryptid matching Bigfoot's description has been witnessed, documented, and is part of local folklore stretching back a millennia, yet is still shunned and rejected by the official scientific community. Bunch of self-righteous, intellectual idiots. We know it's a herbivore. Numerous sightings and interactions of it eating everything from berries to fish to deer. We have reports of Bigfoot using cave systems as shelter, as well as people finding massive stick structures in the woods. Reports of burrowing into inaccessible areas is likely as well. Over the years, folks who have gotten close or grew up on large acreage where they suspected or noticed Bigfoot activity seem to believe they live in family units, with males leaving at maturity to seek a mate and start his own clan, with stealth-like movements and the ability to live anywhere on the globe. Being so well adapted to so many environments, a variation on species is perfectly plausible, with a variety of different descriptions and attributes right here in North America. Can you imagine what's located all around the globe? When you start researching this topic, like many others, you go through phases. First, it's an undiscovered ape. Then, it becomes more human, before you have to admit you can't explain what other people have experienced. Sightings can happen anywhere and everywhere. Any sightings taking place not far from suburbia or major metropolitan areas. The suburban Sasquatch hypothesis is realer than you may think. This hidden and often mysterious life form will be solved by the masses, sharing information with each other. First, we must admit, we don't know as much as we think we do. Second, this is greater than any one person or belief could ever imagine. We need to approach this with an open mind and
with an open heart. Let's go big, guy. So I hope you follow along.
Your move. Not bad for a beginner.
So like, subscribe, and look for future videos. Peace.
Where did you learn how to play?